I just want to say like a couple things, like, just to represent like the younger generation, like, dealing drugs is not terrorism, just for the record. Like, that's not like a common thought that we all grew up with. Um, Belief that like we have to unconditionally support Israel specifically is not something that like our generation grew up with. Belief that like the Soviet Union or slash Russia is the biggest threat to American security. That's not what we grew up with. Like that's not like that just doesn't resonate with anybody that's like around my age group, because we grew up in a world where every single day we were told the biggest threat to our life was radical Islam. Like was Muhammad, like just that guy right there. Like, you see that guy? He's dressed like that. Like he could be strapped with C4. Like that was literally what the narrative was.
All right, welcome back.
What's up,
It's been
y'all?
a minute.
Yeah.
um, First thing, we were just laughing because we both showed up today wearing hoodies. This is some
Hmm.
this is some January, early January attire for you, right? January 3rd, hoodie time.
Yeah, yeah. Say it's the New Year's without saying it's the New Year's. Yeah.
Exactly.
I just turned the heater off. Like I have the my heater, my like own little heater, like just sitting right here in front of my chair, and it'll be like that until probably April.
Well, you guys are definitely gonna be experiencing that for a while, but you know, in Virginia, it's always a little like, wait, they're actually calling for possibly snow today.
It's been crazy in Virginia. I've seen how cold it is. It was not that cold the last couple years.
No, it has not been. So, um, it was uh, some cold to come back to after being in Myrtle Beach.
Yeah, you got spoiled and sick. I see you.
Oh,
Yeah.
the second I got back to Virginia, I got a sinus thing, and it has not gone away. So
Mm, mm,
this morning, I just have a tickly throat because we were sitting outside,
mm.
and the cushions are really dusty. So the dust got me this morning, but that's okay. That's why I got some tea. Hopefully, it will calm down.
Just praying for
the
that
tea
call.
will the tea will soothe the voice.
Yes, yes. Soothe her.
Mm. So, how was your holiday season? We have not
Man.
talked since before Christmas.
Oh yeah. Woo. My days blur together. I mean, I don't even know where to start. It's like it was great. I mean, I'm always looking for the pretty, but I would say we got sick. Like I actually also this reminds me of something. In one of our old podcasts, I forgot to tell this story. Like I was about to tell a story, and then this is like almost like a sequel to that. But yeah, when every like my main little sickness that I get is like I'll get dehydrated, or like I don't know the technical term for it, but I do something, usually something strenuous, and or either I'll do something strenuous or eat something bad, and then like my body will just be like no more liquids, no more, like nothing's getting back in. And yeah, when I was younger, I used to have to go to like the doctor, and they would have to give me like a IV or something, and that'd be my primary way I got sick over the years. And so anyway, so it just so happened I got hit with the double whammy where I was like dehydrated and I got like the flu, whatever. I didn't test to see if it was COVID, but like, let's just say we got flu-like symptoms. And yeah, that was like probably a couple days before Christmas. Yeah, the Sunday before Christmas, I was pretty much just laid on my couch like this with the heater on me while I'm sweating. Like I'm cold, but I'm sweating, and I'm like, just that good old stuff. And then I gave that to Safa. So like she ended up, so I was like, she was taking care of me for like the first 2 days, and then the next couple days, I was taking care of her. Um, but we pretty much got like in good health right before Christmas, and we went to our neighbor's house who we've always been fond of each other, and like we'll joke around, like talk to each other like through the balcony or something like that, but we've never really like kicked it together. And so they invited us over for Christmas dinner. And, my mom's on a cruise, and like my sister's in Florida, so it was cool to like spend some time with a family. And
I'm going to keep talking. I'm going to step out camera just for a second, but keep talking.
yeah,
I'm listening.
yeah, for sure, no problem. Um, that was interesting because like we didn't really tell them, they don't know us, so they didn't know that we don't eat meat or that we don't drink. So and we don't really watch sports, and it was like a football themed, like American, just Christmas, I guess. So it was interesting to kind of like get to know them. They were still super cool and like share stories, but uh, that was definitely like a new like Denver only exclusive experience, I would say. And then um, what else happened after that? Oh, Safa got me a really cool chessboard. We also like we've been getting more into jujitsu, so we ordered like some new gis and stuff. Um, After Christmas, oh well, after Christmas, like pretty much like no one was really around. Like we had like a couple friends here, but most people were pretty busy. So what we did for New Year's Eve, we went to go see. Well, we had people over. We had like a little fire. I guess like I found out against our insurance's like rules, but whatever. We had like a little campfire out back, and and then after that we went to go see FKJ, who's like probably one of our favorite artists together, and he was doing a DJ set for New Year's Eve in Denver. And I guess he does this. Like he was like, "I'll be here next year," and I was like, "What?" I was like, "I had no idea. He's from France. Like he's not even American." I'm like, "Why are you in Denver on New Year's Eve? Like, where are your kids?" But no, it was really great, and I think what I liked most about it was sort of like just growing so much closer to Safa. It was like our first like time, this is our first year away from home. It We left Virginia on the 31st of December, so sort of like, wow, this is like 1 year, like almost to the day. Like, it's also our 3 year anniversary was it is like 11/16, so it was
Wow.
sort of
I can't
like,
believe it's been a year.
yeah, yeah,
Wow.
it's been a year. So we're like looking through photos, and just like while we're like dying together, we're just kind of like sick and just like hanging out and just spending so much time together. And I remember like, there are times when it's like you spend too much time together, you start to like bicker about this or that, and it was like it just felt like we've come so far in our relationship. So it was a great season all in all, and like now it's like, all right, back to reality. Like, I got my stack full of bills right here, like, and it's like, all right, how are we gonna do this? But it's like with this renewed freshness that I'm really appreciating and enjoying. How was your holiday season?
Wow. Such like a whirlwind in a lot of ways. My my family has very strong Christmas traditions,
Mm,
very strong.
mm,
Where there are very prescribed things that we've done every year for the last like probably over 60 years since my oldest sister was born.
mm,
So our Christmas tradition goes along a very set line of like, okay, Christmas Eve, the family gets together,
mm.
the stockings get hung up. My dad reads "Twas the Night Before Christmas." I'm talking like every year for 60 years. This has been our tradition. Dad reads "Twas the Night Before Christmas." Traditionally, we've gone up to Yogaville for the Christmas Eve service, but of course, still I can't access the property with my service animal.
Mm.
Um, so that was the one weird thing about Christmas. I should actually say it kind of starts before Christmas because usually Swami Satchidananda's birthday is on the 22nd.
Mm.
So we start with Jayanti, which is the celebration of his birthday. Um, and that was weird because obviously, again, this year, cannot access the property with my service animal. So I missed all of that. And then we missed the Christmas Eve program. So my oldest sister started a new tradition where everybody goes over and does karaoke and has a party at her house on Christmas Eve.
Mm.
So most of the family went over and did that, but I wasn't feeling well because I got a sinus thing. Like the minute I got back to Virginia, and the dust and I don't know, the environment started getting me.
Yeah.
So, so I was kind of like struggling with that, just trying to keep my energy up because I was like, I know what Christmas is, and I got to be in it for the long haul.
Mm-hmm.
So then so then, the kids go to bed this year. This is the youngest child we've ever had for Christmas. So my nephew is 11.
Yeah.
And this is the youngest kid we've had in 60 years. So that was also very strange, right? Like the youngest one doing this whole ritual was my nephew. So then, the kids get put to bed, and then some Santa Claus stuff happens.
Yeah.
Very ritualistic, very set in its, what happens and how it happens. And also there's a very set order of who goes to bed first. So people get sent to bed as the night develops. And then Christmas morning, so we all go stay at my parents' house. So me and my siblings traditionally have always gone upstairs. This year there were 10 of us shoved into 2 bedrooms, which was very interesting because, again, we're all adults now and an 11-year-old kid.
Yeah.
All sleeping in 10 of us in 2 bedrooms. And then we wake up. So it was a little later actually this year. We slept until 6:30 when the kids were younger. Sometimes it could be 4:35
A.M.
a.m. This is after you've already been up till like midnight or later.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
Everyone's a little delirious. So then we get up on Christmas morning, and again, very prescribed tradition. You get up, everybody wakes up. This year it was great. Henson woke everybody up seamlessly. He ran around and greeted every single person in the room and woke them up. I didn't have to do any work because usually I'm the one that has to wake everybody up and be like, it's Christmas, Santa Claus. I'm the enthusiastic one on Christmas morning.
Yeah, I can see
usually because I haven't slept, so I'm a little insane. And so then we sing to We Wish You a Merry Christmas, and we have to sing it really loud, and then we knock on the door because my parents' room is all the way across on the other side of the house, across the living room. So we have to wake up my parents, and then my parents get up and they put the coffee on, and they say, "Oh, did Santa Claus come?" And so there's like this, and then they come to the door and they're like, "Oh, I think Santa Claus came," and so then we have to line up in age order. And so me and Dee are at the back now because it's all the younger siblings, all the older siblings are, away, living farther away with their families.
Yeah.
So Dee and I are in the back of the line. And then we all have to go out and filter out and see what Santa Claus brought us for Christmas.
One at a time.
And then we look at our Christmas. Yeah. So we get to filter out in a line. And then we look at what Santa brought us. The tradition's not over yet. Then then we have breakfast, and breakfast is very specific. It's always croissants, orange juice, tater tots, and vegetarian sausage. And so we have that, and the punch, not just orange juice, but like punch. So it's like ginger ale, orange juice, and a little pineapple, I think. And so we have punch. And then we sit down and we start opening gifts. And as you can imagine, with that many people, it takes hours and hours because everybody's got to open one gift at a time so everybody can see what everybody else got to make, the gift giving matter.
Mm.
And so our Christmas tradition is like, the morning lasts hours and hours. And then by about 10, 11 o'clock, we are exhausted. So people go and crash and take a nap. Then we get up after that. And we set up all the Christmas traditional foods. So it's like chili, potato salad, ambrosia, relish trays, potato chips, cheese trays, all the kind of Christmassy foods. And then we eat that. And then we spend the afternoon and evening generally playing games. But this year, Dee's son and our daughter-in-law decided to do a Christmas dinner at their house.
Mm.
So we went over and we had like mac and cheese and potatoes, and they had turkey and stuff. And then we opened our Christmas gifts with the grandkids on Christmas night. Well, my son-in-law now, he works for one of the pipelines, and he works swing shifts. So sometimes he's, works nights and sometimes he works days.
Yeah.
So I guess they're all kind of used to more staying up later than they used to. So we
Mm.
were there at their house until midnight,
Oh
playing
no.
with all the toys and hanging out with the grandkids. When we left, we're like still lit up, like
Yeah,
wired
that's
for.
crazy.
Uh, so then, yeah. So finally, around 12:30, D and I were back in bed on Christmas Day. So, and then the day after Christmas is my mom's favorite day of the year because that's game day.
Mm.
So all day we just like eat leftovers from Christmas Day and we just play games all day.
Oh wow.
So that is like, yeah, our Christmas tradition is like very and prescribed, and this is the exact same tradition we've been doing for 60 years, and it's changed
Wow.
very, very little over the years. So it's fun. Yeah, but also unusual because we have such a strong Christmas tradition. And then, then Dee and I are here in Virginia, which is nice. And then on New Year's Eve, I have zero tradition, as in I go to bed before midnight every year. That's my tradition. It's like I am in bed like by usually 9 o'clock. So this year, my mom and I and Dee, we played cards for like 2 hours. Then we had some, non-alcoholic sparkly, and we all sat around and drank a bottle of that, toasting all the things we wish for the new year. And then we went to bed, and it was great.
Wow.
And that's my New Year's, which you can imagine why my New Year's is so uneventful after I have such
Yeah.
a long Christmas.
Yeah, your
But
Christmas start.
then we wake up the day after New Year's,
Mm.
and we find out that Kai's mother has to leave her apartment by the end of January. So Dee and I had already told my mom and dad like we were going to give up this apartment in Virginia,
Mm.
and we were going to move to Myrtle Beach. We were thinking at least for a year. But then now we have to be out of this apartment by January 31st, and we were supposed to leave today, actually, to drive back to Myrtle Beach.
Mm.
So then everything changed a lot because all of a sudden we were like, oh, now we've got to have everything packed up, and now we got to rent a U-Haul. We actually rented 2 storage units, one in Virginia, one in Myrtle Beach, just so we could like figure out where we were going to keep our stuff. And then now we're looking at maybe renting a house there that we might end up buying. So, yeah, a lot of stuff happened really
Wait, wait,
fast.
wait, 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 wait. So let me make sure I understand you because I think I might have heard you like it was kind of quick. So you said, all right, after New Year's, you got notified that the person who's living in the house you're in right now needs to leave
No,
and no, no, okay, okay, okay.
no. The person who wants to move into the house I'm living in now needs to move in February 1st
Oh,
here
in
in
Virginia.
Virginia. Yeah.
Wow.
So
Okay, very
Kai's mother, my nephew's mother, is now moving into this apartment. So
gotcha.
Kai and his dad and my brother's girlfriend live next door in one of
Mm.
the apartments. And now Kai's mom is going to move into the other one. And so they're all going to
The
inhabit
whole
like the
house.
lower floor of my parents' apartment building.
Mm.
And then we are going to move all of our stuff to Myrtle Beach,
Wow.
which is not how we really thought this was going to pan out. But, roll with the punches.
Roll with
I
it.
read
Roll with
something
it.
that was really cool. My mentor, Judith Rich, shared with us. Um, Judith was a transformational leadership trainer and coach for like, I don't know, 50 years. And she shared something about the year of the snake, which was last year,
Mhm.
and how the year of the snake is all about shedding identities. And it's actually part of a 9-year cycle of shedding a previous identity.
Mm.
And that shedding can be very chaotic and painful sometimes if you're not ready for it. And it's really about like emerging into something new. And everybody I've shared that article with has resonated with it so much I should send it to you because it is just like spot on. We were all just like, oh, that sounds about right. So then, of course, the Chinese New Year coming up. So we've got, we got to finish out that cycle of the snake, which we're still technically in. Then comes the year of the fire horse, which I think that name alone explains what the coming year should be for all of us. Fire horse is so great. I just love that term, fire horse. Oh, you're still on mute, I think.
Let me look that up. I'm like fire horse. I
Yeah,
have to
fire
see what
horse.
that is. So
Yeah, right.
let's see. So fire horse is the this is what Google's got to say. Chinese zodiac beginning February 17th and ending February 5th following year. Dynamic energy. The fire element amplifies the horse natural vitality, creating intense energy for progress and change. Transformation. It's seen as a powerful time for breaking old patterns and embracing new beginnings. Boldness. This year encourages freedom, self expression, and challenging limitations. It only happens once every 60 years. And then, yeah, it's associated with the element red. Dope.
So go back and read the Year of the Snake.
Let's see. So yeah, what is year of the snake? Year of the snake. Yeah, okay, cool. Started January 29th of 2025. Okay, cool. So key characteristics of the snake: intelligence and wisdom. Snakes are associated with sharp intellect and deep into it. This one has like different sources. This embodies renewal and change. Transformation. Personality. Those born in this year of the snake are often seen as charming, decisive, resilient, and resourceful. And then it's a wood element emphasizes creativity, flexibility, and peace, suggesting a year for self improvement and new ideas. Um,
Okay, so we're back.
yeah. Were you
Just a little
reading the snake?
brief interlude. So I
Yeah.
wanted to read you just a little bit of the year of the wood snake. So it says, if this year has felt heavier, stranger, or more final than others, you're not imagining it. It says, as 2025 comes to a close, we are finishing a rare convergence of endings. Throughout this year, Chinese astrology has been moving us through the year of the wood snake. While numerology marked 2025 as a universal 9-year, the final year of a 9-year cycle. Both systems, entirely different in origin, have been saying the same thing all along. Something is over and it's for a reason. So the snake is not loud, it doesn't rush, it doesn't explain itself. The snake sheds when it has outgrown its skin, not because it wants to, but because staying would suffocate it. Throughout this snake year, especially with the wood element emphasizing growth and flexibility, anything that became false, restrictive, or outdated has begun to crack. Relationships that no longer fit, roles you've been performing out of habit, versions of yourself that once kept you safe but now keep you small. Snake energy strips us down to our most honest self, and honesty, when it arrives before we feel ready, is a painful medicine. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
That sound right?
Yes. Amen. Oh my goodness.
Right.
Great.
Woo!
I
So,
yes. I mean, I think I feel like that resonates on so many different levels, like especially like with us and but even like I don't know, it's like even like societally, like everyone's like, wow, like this place, like the whole world that we live in isn't what we thought it was. Like and almost everybody's philosophies or like just like I don't know, like everything. And I like how it's followed by like the fire element. Like, okay, now it's like you have like this wood snake, and it's almost like the wood snake would shed like old wood almost, in a way. And it's like, and then it's like you have this fire element. It's like, what are we gonna do with that? I was even having like, I have I have a friend that's having a tough time, and he has been for a while, and it's sort of like my advice to him this morning was along those lines where it's like, sometimes it's not that we do things that we don't want to do, like it's that we like add on this layer of shame, like we start to judge ourselves. Like um Kevin Gates in that Theo Von and Kevin Gates had a podcast. I shared a little clip with you, but in another part of the in another part of it, he said it beautifully. And he was like, um, he's like, sometimes like, his negative self talk is like, if he doesn't meet his obligations, like he's a punk, like he's weak. Like sometimes we feel that way when we don't do what we don't like in private. We don't do what we say we're gonna do. Like we feel so like self, like it's such a self defeating feeling. And it's interesting because it's like, you know almost like if you just if you just let time take its course, like it'll shed off you. But it's like the shame almost like grips it. Like the shame keeps you attached to that thing that you're trying to drop, almost in a way where it's like, it's funny that you bring up the snake. A snake is my favorite animal. Like when I was a kid, I liked planets and snakes. Like 6-year-old Quint, I was one of like I didn't know dinosaurs or cars or none of that. And so I love like the black mamba was my favorite snake way before I ever like even knew who Kobe was. And but all like the snakes and like how they moved, and like if you know how snakes shed their skin, like snakes don't just like shed their skin. They're not just like, oop, like I'm out. Like they rub up against surfaces. Like they have to use like the friction in the environment around them to like rub and scrub themselves and like work. And it's like it's not like quick, like it takes a while for like think about like a 20-foot anaconda or whatever, you know what I mean? Like they don't shed overnight. It actually takes a minute for it to shed. And like if you don't, sometimes we can be like our habits or whatever that we're trying to shed, like we see them on us still, but it's like we don't recognize it. No, that's like shed skin and it's all the way down by our tail. Like like we were talking before about how the holiday season can bring up a lot of like difficult memories for people, and like a lot of us have lost people over ODing or suicide, or you could even say like sometimes like some chronic diseases or like those things masked. We overeat to mask our depression and X, Y, and Z, and then there's also some of us lost people that passed just like suddenly. But you get reminded when you're doing your little ritual and you're like, oh no, like they're not here. Like dang, like Isaiah is not here anymore. We used to celebrate Hanukkah together. Like, and I remember part of my Christmas ritual growing up was my mom loved was Queen of Christmas, but her sister was Jewish, and that was my other closest cousin. So we spent most of our time in the temple around Christmas because it's 9 days. You talking right? I believe, if I'm not mistaken, talk about nines. Um, so but yeah, so I just want to say like yeah, it's that like really resonates. Like that's been on my mind a lot is like this like that sort of like you actually have your things that you're trying to let go of. They incrementally leave you. Like it takes baby steps. Not everything is just like all at once. And then you then turn around and you look at that shed skin, and like which you look if you've ever seen a snake shed skin, and like it goes into the earth to be like regenerated and reused. It's like it's not poison. Like your addiction, like in your mind, it might be poison to you and it might be poisoning your body and whatever that is, but it's not like once you shed it, it's not like it's neutral. It's like a neutral thing. It's like maybe this is just like a part of the process in order for you to grow into a larger, like more competent, more capable thing. So that's pretty cool. Yeah, the snake.
Also, one of the things that I think is interesting because so many people wake up like, on January 1st and think, okay, that year's gone. Things are going to change. But there's other cycles and other calendars that can be applicable. And so you think about the Chinese calendar, we're still in this same year of the wood snake for a little longer. So if you're noticing in January, like it did not turn out like you wanted it to be, and you're like, why is 2026 like still feeling like 2025? So it may not have anything to do with like our lunar cycles or whatever, but it has to do with, the fact that there's other other calendars, other influences that can come into play. And so just hang in there if January is still feeling a little intense, and know that, midway through February, there should be some shifting of energy, and things will start to look a little different and take on a new feeling and a new energy. So, don't get too down if you're like, oh, why is January so awful?
We're only 3 days in, all right, or 4 days in. However many. Take it easy. And, I wanna say too, like, I'm glad that you brought up that, like, we've been bringing up, like, just, like, the typical astrological signs, like, Aries is the start of the year, we're still in Capricorn, so this is the 10th sign. There's 11th, which is Aquarius, which is essentially mid-February, mid-January to mid-February, then there's Pisces, and then there's Aries, so it's sorta like, um yeah, it's either way you look at it, it's like this year is not complete. You're still a part. This is still all a part of the process, and it's like, we're saying and then also Ramadan, if you practice Islam, is in February this year. I wonder what date it starts. Expected to start between 28th of
February
February.
17th through
February.
March.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that
That's
even aligns with that.
saying also the Chinese New Year is shifting, right? The 17th.
Yeah. So
That's
there's
interesting.
definitely.
So then there's this whole other thing that's happening also in the cycle, and that's why Ramadan happens there, is that that's also a new shifting of energy. And even, I mean, I come from a very interfaith background, so I benefit from getting to celebrate and participate in many religious traditions. And even if it's not particularly your religious tradition or something that you choose to f- practice in that way, there's still like a lot of value in just kind of being aware of the energy or why that particular thing is being practiced at that time. And also looking at like maybe a little bit what the practice is and how you could apply that practice a little bit to your own life. You don't have to believe in the religion or follow that religion to see that there's reasons why, it was set up and things were practiced at the time they were. And so just like, it's lovely to like be aware of Hanukkah during that, quote unquote Christmas season and traditional, American Christmas season and what that energy brings. Also, when the spring comes and you're looking at like Ramadan and Lent, Lent is also very similar to the practices of Ramadan. Like, so I think it's just interesting that it's all kind of converging. I don't know when Lent starts this year. That would be interesting to look up too, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, while you're looking that up, and what this means is that like there's grace in the air. Like it's almost like this is the time to like do the work and like observe that. Yeah, I have to rub and scrub and like work to get this off. Yeah,
So guess what? Lent
yeah.
starts on February 18th.
Huh? See?
So something's happening, you guys. I don't care what tradition you're looking at here. There's a lot of stuff that's coming down the pike right around that date where there's going to be a lot of renewal, a lot of shifting, a lot of energy that's going to change. And so just, we can kind of be aware of it now so that when it happens, I think it's nice to be just consciously aware of the shiftings of energy and what's happening on the planet. And if you think about all those Catholics and all those Muslims around the world practicing a time of restraint and oh shoot, what's the word I'm looking for? Um Not penitence, but like a time of uh
Discipline.
pulling back the
Almost.
senses, right? Of
Oh
like
yeah.
withdrawal of the senses. That's going to be a powerful energy for that many people around the planet to be kind of like on the same sort of general track. And so it might be interesting, even if you don't practice, even if you're not Catholic or Muslim, it might be interesting just to you know, uh, during that time after, the 17th, 18th, to try to practice something of your own time, something to give up or something to restrain or something to pull back on in your own life.
Absolutely. And then like so Yeah, and then I guess since that would be in that like Pisces season, there's going to be like this feeling of a lot of uncertainty, like just naturally, because it's like, all right, like spring's coming, but we're still sort of in winter, and there's this sensation of like we know that there's new beginnings, there's longer days coming, there's all this like, summer's right around the corner, but at the same time, you're still like, you're still tied down in the reality that it's still kind of cold out. You're still bogged down and maybe not able to do all of the things that you want to do. So like what's very encouraging about like hearing about like this fire horse and is that like it gives us it gives us hope that it won't be hard. Like
Right.
like you're gonna have all the energy you need. Like it's not gonna be dreadful. Like what you're dreading before will now just seem like a little anthill for you to step over. And like even knowing that in advance, where sometimes this mountain might seem so big, like like for a good example is like literally climbing a mountain. It's like from far away, it's like, yeah, if I have to go from ground level to the top of the mountain, that's crazy. But you hike a little bit each day, you go a little bit each day, and then all of a sudden it's not difficult at all. And then so anyways, I think it was pretty cool to like go through that. I'm hearing this strange noise, but we'll see how it goes. Anyways, this one thing that's been on my mind a lot is like relationships, because obviously you're having these relationships with your family, you're having you're with your partner, whoever that is. Hold up, let me check something out. This sound is getting really loud.
We're having like a New Year's January 3rd technical difficulties today. Yeah, that seems totally appropriate. We're
Let's
not
see.
the only ones trying to figure out our way into the new year.
Exactly. It's all working out. I think but yeah, so I've been like, I don't know, I've been thinking about relationships a lot, and on pretty much every level as usual, and I was like, okay, there's like this thing where I'll start from the top down. It's like we have a relationship with the earth, right? Like we have I heard this one tribal chieftain, he was like, every man has two wives. His first wife is the earth. Like, and he goes, he looks after her, he takes care of her, like he puts good energy into her, like takes care of her, and like, and then God willing reaps the rewards of that. And then his wife that he's married to, for example. And you know I was thinking to myself, like, we're all sort of just like if you were to strip everything down, like take all the rituals down, like, because when you're talking about the rituals, it's like sort of like all of the religious traditions essentially have rituals like that like you have your Christmas tradition, which is a good parallel, I guess, for all rituals, and it's like essentially just some family 60 years ago decided this is how we're gonna do it, like that's the story of Islam. That's the story of like even like a lot of the powerful churches. It's like this is our family. We do it like this. It's like, do you want to do it like us? And so then I thought like we're all just really playing house. We kind of brought this up before, but um you know Capricorn has this weird energy because it's sort of like you're celebrating, but then like stuff hits the fan, right? Like for me, I got hit with a special assessment. Our foundation is cracking and our boiler room is messed up. And it's like literally we got a notification on the 21st and it was like respond by the 28th, like playtime's over. Like, uh, we need to cough up between the seven of us, we need to cough up like 50K. So I was like, oh yeah, yeah, and but I think like even and we see that in every scale of the world where it's like sort of like this feeling of like, okay, now we feel like we're in this new space. We feel like we almost feel further than we should, but at the same time, it's like we see that like since we feel that since we feel like we should be sitting back, like almost like the work feels more difficult, more daunting, and I remember I brought this up before where I was like Sagittarius is like the campfire before winter. It's sort of like it's like the last supper, the feast. and then you move into this time period where it's cold out here. You're going to kind of feel that cold. You're going to get pushed a little bit, and it's often more materialistically, like with our housing unit, with our health, with our job, money, things like that. So anyways, so all this has been on my mind. It's sort of like we have sort of two options. It's like when we play house, when we play human being, when I play man, husband, house ruler, or whatever, son, when we're doing all these roles and trying to like live in harmony together, like we can do that in accordance to the natural cycles or not. Like we can do that in observation of nature and appreciation of nature. Like for example, it's the full moon in Cancer. So if you're also feeling like an emotion, like just like sort of like a nostalgic, emotional security, like kind of focused energy, like a lot of it, and it's also very relevant with like us. We're probably with our families, also just given the time of the year. Like also keep that in mind. And um, but anyways, so I'm like thinking to myself, like when I think about, and we brought this up before, and I kind of have to be a little bit more serious now because we've been tracking some of the conflicts around the world, and it's like we've been increasing military action in Venezuela, and there's like now they're signing off on more strikes against Iran, and like all these
Mhm.
sorts of things, like this sort of energy starting to come back again, and also with that fire horse coming, with that fire energy happening, we also have to be conscious too, where it's like we all have the wolf and the sheep in us, and the wolf and the sheep are both influenced by all of these cycles. So you know um so just keeping that in mind, it's like basically a long time ago a bunch of dudes said that we're going to have nation states, and the way that we play nation state is that we try to take each other's resources, like ultimately. Like we see it again and again where it's like pretty much all the conflicts in my lifetime have been like over oil, or like it's like we're always beefing with someone who's got a lot of oil, or like we're always beefing with someone who's got a lot of natural resources, or we're always beefing with somebody who, or or helping someone in some conflict who has some natural historic claim that like something special, that's like some sort of geopolitical benefit. But it's like it is just a game. Like it is literally a game. Like
Mhm.
it feels like it has to be, and it feels like, all right, it's been 60 years or whatever. This is how America's against Russia and China, and that's how we've been doing it since like that's how we do it. That's the world order. That's how we play this game. These are the pieces, these are the rooks, these are the pawns. And I think like so many of us are just like, this doesn't make any sense anymore. Like I saw a statistic, for example, like the Muslim population in our country has quadrupled since 9/11. Obviously there's Ron Mondani, who is, I would say, the pinnacle of this shift, who's a reflection of a guy who's my age, right? And this is the world that I grew up in. It's like
Yeah.
we grew up with kids that are refugees from Ethiopia, but they're the smartest kids in the class. And
Mm.
and we got taught right away, like, respect that faith, for example. Like it wasn't like strange to us. Same, we have Vietnamese kids and Korean kids and kids from Taiwan and kids from China and kids from all of these places, that it's like the older generation like still stuck in the same ritualistic, militaristic position. Like these are our allies, these aren't our allies. And it's like who's like who's this we that you're talking about? Because um we shed that. Like we weren't born with that, but also like we don't we we can see now that like, almost like that shedding of skin is starting to happen. Like, and it's so crazy. It's like a lot of our leaders, not just our leaders, but even like leaders around the world. Like I also found out Brazil's president is also like 80 as well. And it's like they have the same worldview as their 20s. Like they're locked into the worldview that they had when they were like 25, you know?
Yeah.
And it's
And
like forever and always, like these are our enemies. Um and I just think, like, I just want to say like a couple things, like, just to represent like the younger generation, like, dealing drugs is not terrorism. just for the record. Like, that's not like a common thought that we all grew up with. Um, Belief that like we have to unconditionally support Israel specifically is not something that like our generation grew up with. Belief that like the Soviet Union or slash Russia is the biggest threat to American security. That's not what we grew up with. Like that's not like that just doesn't resonate with anybody that's like around my age group because we grew up in a world where every single day we were told the biggest threat to our life was radical Islam. Like was Muhammad, like just that guy right there. Like, you see that guy? He's dressed like that. Like he could be strapped with C4. Like that was literally what the narrative was, especially for me who grew up in Quantico in this heavily military place. And it's like, and so when you're talking about the snake, it's like, I think that, I'm sitting here in Denver, right? I bet you Denver, Colorado in 2001, September 12th versus 2025. It's like, every kid, every woke shop is playing Arabic music. You know what I mean? Like every there oh my God, everybody here is wearing, when I grew up, you couldn't even wear like my wife is Iraqi. Her mom really had to debate like is she gonna cover up because every time she covered up and her man wasn't around like in Tennessee or in rural Virginia and in Houston, like and growing up when we grew up, like that was a really tough, that was not cool. That was not like being Muslim was not in. Now, like it's in, like especially in like the more liberal cities for sure, 100%. Like because they want to show solidarity. So I just wanted to like kind of say that because like this is just a decision that a group of guys made at some point in time. Everything, everything, and like at every moment, like we're all like humanity really is like this big snake shedding its skin. And I think like, as we move into this new age, the question is are we going to burn this? Like, are we going to use this history, this baggage, if you will? Are we going to burn it and use it to burn the forest down? Or are we going to let it like disintegrate and fall away and rejuvenate us? And I think that's like what's been on my mind a lot recently.
That's a lot that's been on your mind recently.
Oh, that's just a normal Tuesday. Because then at the same time it goes like you can think about the world, but how are you treating your wife?
Right. Yeah.
You can think about like you can think about this, but how are you treating your dog and your plants? And then you go like how whatever is happening out there is still ultimately a reflection of what's going on with Quentin.
It's so interesting because Dee and I have been watching Homeland. Again, he'd never seen it the first time around. And so I watched it when it was being released, season by season. And the themes that were so relevant back then, like the day-to-day fear of terrorism was very
Yeah.
palpable in those early 2000s. Now, mass shootings are much more concerning, right? I feel like
Yeah.
most average Americans are less afraid of terrorism and more afraid that they're going to be involved in a mass shooting. And rightfully so. But
Yeah.
it's interesting to really be able to see that show was so relevant and so speaking to that moment in time and how powerful it was. And yet watching it now, it's still a great show, but it's also a little bit like watching an old Cold War movie. And you're a
Yeah.
little like, oh, the narrative changed a lot, hasn't it? Wow. Like the
Yeah.
things that we're concerned about. And then, of course, COVID, like, after the whole world went through COVID together, like a lot of the concerns or the themes or the topics or what's happening. And then, of course, our own leadership in our own country feels much more threatening than leadership in other countries to us. And so it was really interesting to like be
Hmm.
watching something that at the time was so, cutting edge and really speaking to the time and then watching it now and looking like, oh, that's quaint.
Oh, how adorable! Like
Oh,
people are
no,
really worried
is
about
that
that.
what we were worried about?
Yeah, yeah,
So
and
it's just
mm,
interesting. Like, I really feel what you're saying about like things changing and the times changing, and um, and keeping that in mind that, like, again, rituals, beliefs, all of these things were cultivated over time because of agreements. People agreed to them. Their choice. They're not inevitable. They're not rules and laws. They are perceptions. They're choices. They're um, agreements that we made as a society. All of these things that can be changed and undone. And that's really a powerful thing to keep in mind. Um, that we have a lot more power to change things than often we give ourselves credit for, because it really
yeah,
does start with just the choice. And I love what you're saying, because exposure is really a big thing. Like, when you're exposed to new ideas, different imagery, I mean, it's no small thing that we have a young Muslim mayor in New York City. That is going to influence the way the world sees a lot of things. And
yeah,
uh so I think it's kind of like, it's a totally exciting time that we're living in, and a little overwhelming sometimes, and a little um you know it can feel a little unsure sometimes, but really we also get to remember that when you're living history, it feels really intense. Uh and that's always the case. So, but it's not like this point in time of history is more intense than another point in time in history. It's just when you're living it, it definitely feels like the thing. So, just keeping that in mind. And then, of course, I always like to link it back to yoga. Um, this idea that it is the reality we're choosing. Reality is not set in stone. Reality is something that we co-create. And it's something that we all weave together. And the best place to change that reality, if you want to change something in the world, you got to start with yourself, and you got to start with your own inside, right? You can't change something externally. It really has to start with your own inner peace, your own inner,
yeah,
um, groundedness. And it's been interesting, like, and I'm not saying it's easy, right? Like, I mean, Quentin and I know a lot about health and wellness, and yet both of us got sick over the holiday. So it's
yep,
not like you never get sick just because you know these things. It's not like you're completely immune to all the things just because you know them. Um, Obviously, there's like ups and downs. So I also think like that's, being too judgmental of others if they are experiencing something that you deem as negative. Like, it's very easy to judge people because they're sick or overweight or have a certain illness, because you're like, oh, well, if you did such and
yep,
such, you would be in health and harmony. And remembering that we're all just working with our own selves. And again, it starts with ourself. It's not about like looking outside of ourselves and judging others, but really just looking internally and seeing how we are reacting to everything. And that's why I also think it's really going to be interesting, this February convergence, right? Where the Chinese New Year is changing. Uh, we've got Ramadan happening, and then we've
yep,
got Lent happening all at once. That's a lot of different powerful energies focused on one little thing. And so, looking again, like, um, even if I don't believe in any of that, even if I'm just like traditional, let's just say Baptist or Christian in an American lifestyle, there's still something that you can gain from, like, wow, but most of the world is going to be focused on this time and this energy. How can I apply that to whatever resonates with me in what I'm doing with my time and energy? And of course, with yoga, it always says, again, look inside. And both Ramadan and Lent are very internal processes. They're very much about like purifying your own self as opposed to like looking outside of yourself. And then, um, this horse, right? What's it called? The fire horse? Is that what I said?
fire horse,
Fire
yeah,
horse, right? So fire is also a very purifying force. So I think like the fire horse is probably like purifying also. So there's going to be some purifying energies that are coming up. for that month. And I think just having an awareness about it and looking at how we can kind of ride the wave of what's naturally happening and lean into some sort of purification in our own selves, our own bodies. Again, it's very interesting personally because that's, we didn't think we were going to be moving until maybe March. And now all of a sudden we're going to be like in this new phase, this new energy, this new space, this new stuff happening. And I would imagine we're not alone. I would imagine a lot of you have like weird, strange shifts coming up that
Yeah.
came up a little faster than you thought were going to happen. I bet there's people who are going to like get pregnant. I bet there's people who are going to change jobs or homes or, yeah, all kinds of stuff that is going to be really interesting and fascinating in the long run. Uh, that will be so
Yeah.
exciting. I'm really looking forward to just seeing what's coming.
Yeah.
I'm kind of
Abs-
excited.
Hell yeah. You know, I was I think like okay, so one of the things I had brought up a while back in our group message was I was like I wanted to kind of talk about like yoga and the supernatural, and you had me think like the way this conversation has gone is like it's sort of like oftentimes like just astute observation or like is supernatural. I said my wife I heard this podcast. There's this one woman named Allison Armstrong. She's like a relationship guru really at this point. She says I've been studying men since 1991. And
Me too,
and
Allison. Me too.
and so she's like I'm not interested in what's right or wrong. I'm interested in how they are. Like what are their priorities, what is not their priorities, like, and if, as women, as a superior species, like, it seems that it dawns on us to understand them, if they really are so simple, then so she's very interesting and sweet and super cool, and she's like very grandma-y, like, oh my God. And she had a husband who passed away, and then now she's like, I think she's got a boyfriend now for like 5 years. She's like 65. And so she just is really great. She's been like popping up on my feed recently. I listened to her podcast she had a while back, but there's so many things in there that she says that it just all points in the same direction of like be selfless. Like assume the best, be selfless. Assume the best, be selfless. How can you adjust? How can you accommodate? Like, cuz she's like it's funny because she goes, so often, like, we don't even know, she was like, she grew up in the generation of like, she said her mom used to sing, anything you can do, I can do better. Like,
Yeah.
just that generation, right? And so she thought like, so her
South
predis,
Pacific.
huh?
Is that Oklahoma? Oklahoma or South Pacific?
I don't even know who sang that. I just know my mom used to sing that too.
But one of those
Like,
circles.
yeah. And it's like just you're just from like just sort of I forget exactly what term she used, but it was just like a new era, right? Women were getting more freedoms. It was like post-war era was sort of like that time, and it's sort of like, well, um,
Oh, sorry, I'm
uh,
gonna interrupt. It was Annie, Get Your Gun.
Annie, get your gun.
Yeah, Annie, Get Your Gun.
It's like I don't even know. I don't think I've ever even thought of the name of that song. I just always heard it playing the chorus or whatever. And so she was just um so she was just, I was listening to her, and it's like giving me good advice on like how to operate in my own relationship, because it's like so oftentimes we judge others without fully understanding their differences. But anyway, so she goes, what she brings up in one of the conversations is like, um men would like to be impressive rather than be pleased. A lot of women might be like, let me make sure I take care of you, let me cater to you type energy. But she goes, oftentimes, like, men, when you actually speak to men, they want to be, we want to be hunters. We want to be empowered. We want to feel, we want to get you the fancy thing. and be like, oh, you're so cool. Like, only you could do this, Quentin. Like, you're awesome. Like, that's like the kind of like the wet dream thing for men. And I think so she's just trying to, so anyway, so it prompted me to ask my wife, and I was like, so what could I do to impress you? Like, I have a natural drive to impress you. I have to impress you. Like, it's not optional. Um, I would much, and I don't even really like when you cater to me. Like, outside of me asking you for specific things, like, I'd rather you only help me when I ask. Other than that, like, let me do everything that I can to, like, just, you know. And but even it's funny, she even gave the advice. She's like, but that also doesn't work either. Like, people have to give. Like, you have to give your spouse opportunities to give to you in the way that they need to give to you in order for them to feel fulfilled too. So she just gives good advice all around. But anyways, so made me ask my wife that question. Hey, how could I impress you? She goes, be a mind reader. And then I was like, huh. And then she goes, and then she goes, to me, mind reading is like paying a lot of attention. Like, if you order that thing, if you pay, and I've heard this 10,000 times in my life through my mother. I've seen it every single day through my mother, like growing up. Is like you doing things that are your quote unquote responsibilities. And Allison doesn't necessarily like, she has more to say on this, but she's like, doing things that are your responsibilities aren't necessarily impressive. But like, she was like, if you're able to do things that like I don't have to tell you to do, but that I would like, that would be impressive, right? Okay, so cool. Pause. So all my life, I'm like, that's so unfair. Like, that's ridiculous. Like, that's and every guy I've ever met, like, we all like, there's millions of likes on videos that all have that same context of like, she wants me to be able to read her mind and do these things in advance and just know that like, this is how I should love you and how I should take care of you. And then, so it had me thinking like, um, what is interesting about yoga is it does really help you be a lot more present. Like,
Mm-hmm.
even like, just speaking for those of us with like short attention spans, like, it just helps you just be able to sit there and just listen to someone tell you about themselves. And oftentimes, like, I remember like before I started practicing yoga, like meditation and these different things, like, if someone was telling me a story, like, I would interject myself in the story. I would feel like somehow the story had to do with me in some way, or like, why are you telling me this story? Or like, what are you trying to say? Like, what's going on here? And then it just gives you this space to notice all these things that, like, it's not really supernatural or superhuman, but it's just, maybe you could say, like, underutilized if you're not in presence. And then obviously we live in an era with this cell phone and all this extra stuff that makes it even more difficult to be present. And I thought to myself, I'm like, rather than running from that and being like, I just am who I am. Like, why can't you just like me for how I want to be? Why can't you, accept my love the way that I want to give you this love or whatever? It's like, no, like, really challenge yourself to reach heights that you can never even think imaginable. And that pairs very well with Capricorn. Capricorn is that like energy of, it's an earth sign, it's a materialistic sign. So like, prominent Capricorns are like business men and women, like CEOs, like getting to the top, slow and steady, but getting to the top. But what the lesson is that as you get to the top, you know, as you start to get to these new places, you realize like, A, the grass is only greener where you water it. It's not just because you have more money does not mean automatically your life gets better. Really, the thing that gets better is your perspective
Yeah.
starts to shift. Like,
Yep.
you start to elevate the way that you view the world. You start to elevate the world the way that you view others. It's like, the folks that get more, that are happy, you have to be more charitable. You have to be more selfless. You're gonna have to be a little, and you're gonna get squeezed and pressed and in harder directions, but at the same time, in order to sort of like balance that out and still feel fulfillment in your life, you have to become more generous and more giving in the process. And then obviously, as you get higher up the mountain, as you get higher up the food chain, like, God willing, you have more of an opportunity to do that. You know what I'm saying? So all that's to say was like, when I was thinking about like, how is my relationship to the world? Like, how is my relationship to earth? Like, do I look at the earth and say, like, what can you give me? How can you serve me? Like, how can you please me? Or do I look at the earth and say, how can I impress you? Like, how could Quentin impress Mother Earth? I
Yeah.
wonder. Or how could Quentin impress society or X, Y, and Z? And it's like, and then you start saying to yourself, like, well, what is impressive? Like, what does that really mean? What is like, what's above the bare minimum? Like, what mark do I want to leave? Like, what challenges do I want to pursue in this like short little life? And it's like, it makes you think like, okay, the old guys for the past 60 years, they've all been running in this direction. Like, we want to have more technology. We want to have more surveillance. We want to have more uniformity. We want to have more ethnic diversity, but not necessarily diversity of thought. Right? It's like you can kind of see, like, I think we're at this point now, especially with the invention of all this technology that they built, we can see like all of the history at the same time, and you can see like, oh, the whole world is sort of pointing us and pushing us. It's impressive to be a general. It's impressive to be like this dominating industry person. But I think like what I'm saying, like, I think the younger folks are saying, like, what if it's more impressive to be really cool and loving and peaceful? Like, what if it's really impressive to be graceful? And I
I
think
think that
like,
can I
yeah,
just jump in here? I think
please.
what you're also talking about is what's resonating with people with Mamdani.
Mm,
Because those are the things that he embodies:
mm, yeah,
inclusivity, peace, peacefulness,
mm,
joy. Very different than our leaders that we've previously had.
yeah, yeah, and yes, and okay, so that was one thing I was thinking about, and then so of course, like we've been talking about, we're in this weird, and Capricorn is also materialistic, so it makes you, like I said, it thinks it's a Earth sign. So we had also been mentioning like Nick Fuentes and some of the more racial conversations that have been happening and ethnic conversations, and like, how do we sort of like, how do I sort of thread that with the yogic approach, and how how can we be peacemakers essentially? And it's sort of like, it's interesting because I've been like thinking more about, like, I've been watching a lot of videos. There's this one guy named Woda Maye. He's a Ghanan, and he's going to it's WODE space Maya MAYA, and he goes to all the African countries, and it's basically just like, I'm going to show you the stuff that the news doesn't show you. I remember I told you something about this similar, where there's that one guy who's biking from Portugal to Japan, and he's like,
Mhm.
he's showing you, like, he's talking to guys in the Taliban, and they're smiling at him, and he's like, these guys are actually kind of nice, like, for example. And then so, this guy's, and he's sort of doing something similar but different, because each time he goes to a country, he then goes through the history. He goes, this is their colonial past, or Ethiopia lack of colonial past, or this. And he's also like a jolly guy. He's not too heavy, so you can kind of sneak in and out. That's probably why his visa gets approved. But he's very blatant, and is like, why is it hard to get from Ghana to Nigeria? Like, why is there all these border policies? Like, actually in West Africa, it's not that difficult, but like, his whole thing is like, it should just be as easy as it is in the States to get to the different African states. Like, they're not warring with each other, like, for the most part, like, but
Right.
there's all this division. And so he has a very, like, I would say, a Pan-African approach. And it just makes
Hmm.
you think, it's like, anytime you ever talk to a Pan-Africanist, they're just like, hey, the European powers decided the borders of all these African nations, like, can we reconsider that? Like, that's really what it means. And then I think it doesn't mean we want to fight nobody, doesn't mean nobody has to get killed or hurt. It doesn't mean anybody has to, like, nothing like that. It's just like, we're a new generation, we can reconsider some things. So it's ironic, who embodies that energy the most is this guy named Ibrahim Traore. I don't know how to pronounce French too well, but he's the leader of Burkina Faso. Have you seen him on Instagram?
Mm-mm.
So Oh, it's so interesting learning about the African nations because you see how many of them are socialist, like by our standards. As in, like Botswana, they all their education's free, all their healthcare is free. They actually get paid to go to school, and they let any African from any nation go there. Um, to their universities. And there's other nations there's several nations like that. Or like in Ethiopia, for example, in Addis Ababa, their capital city, they don't let cars on the road for half a day on Sunday. So that, and this is in multiple other countries, so people can play on the street and enjoy like the street and not just have it be strictly used for cars. But anyways, it's interesting to see all these different countries approach to how they want to live. And his whole thing is like, why can't I'm going to all these places? I'm just saying like, why can't we take a little bit of what Ethiopia does, a little bit what Nigeria does, a little bit what these guys do, a little bit what these guys do, and like just make that accessible to all of us. So this Ibrahim guy, this leader of Burkina Faso, to me and I've said this before, like, a Virginian, Thomas Jefferson, George Washington influenced political philosophy, where their political philosophy, now that I say it out loud, is you can't trust European government. Like, as in our governments, the governments that we look up to, you can't trust them. So, but we'll model it off of one, but then we'll adjust it in a way. We'll model it off in England, but we'll adjust it in a way to make sure that like the horrors that England inevitably, from their point of view, inevitably did or would do, we'll try to prevent that.
Hmm.
So, but which is an interesting point of view because sort of like don't trust me. Essentially, is kind of how I look at it. Like, hey, I'm your leader, but you shouldn't just trust me, which is interesting. And then so then you have this African nation who has almost the exact opposite political philosophy. He came to power through a military coup, undemocratically, and everybody in the country loves him because the president was corrupt and was dealing with France and doing all this kind of stuff. And they felt like he's a reincarnation of an earlier military commander who did the same thing, but he got
Hmm.
assassinated by the Western powers. So they're saying, so reading this, listening to this episode of this guy, it's like, it's interesting. It reminds me of Donald Trump, where it's like Donald Trump's reputation is almost the same as this guy's, but the opposite. So what I'm saying is like this guy's actually a dictator. Like he literally came to power as a military coup, right? He's cutting all ties to what he calls all colonizers. He's cutting all ties to all exterior influence, cutting all the banks out. He's like, we're investing, like we're, as in the people buy stocks in their own industries. So the profit from the industries go to the residents of the Burkina Faso, not just the state. But the state is the one that's like going to whatever company and putting in these orders and buying all this material to rebuild their own country. So they're like, so it's this really interesting thing for me, especially like I said, growing up how I grew up, where it's like you're not supposed to trust your government, you're supposed to be extremely skeptical of them, and also like you don't want your government to do things for you because the government is not going to necessarily do them in the best way. Like you don't want to rely on them to feed you because now they're going to have all these things and rules to feed you. But there in this country, it's almost the exact opposite, where they're like, they feel like their country is under siege and has been under siege for 300, 400 years, essentially, consecutively by commercial interests. And so they're like, there's this, it's the nationalism is crazy, is what I'm trying to get at. And it's like, there's people that like the guys, like people that are civilians, not even military men, they're like this guy, he interviews like a group of them in the city, and he goes, these are guys that have jobs, they're not homeless, but they voluntarily do sleep shifts. Do shifts in the street where they sleep outside because they're like, we know that our president has assassination attempts, we know that it's likely that someone might try to invade us, so we take it upon ourselves to protect and like notify the military. We don't let the military protect us. We help protect the military.
Hmm.
And
Inter-
like, yeah, so he's like, we're a little country. So he's like, it has to be all hands on deck type energy. Like, no one's going to like the fact that this guy is kicking all the Europeans out. No Americans are allowed to go. Like, he's likely to be assassinated or couped. So that's their point of view because that's what's happened to pretty much all the other guys that have tried to do something like that they've been able to. So it's a very like interesting kind of world where it's like almost the inversion where it's like here's this guy who they all view as almost like a righteous king and they want him to rule and they trust him. Like the young guys, like the 19-year-olds like
Yeah.
trust him. And then at the same time like using that logic, I was talking about Nick Fuentes before where you go, "Hey, this is a white nation. America was founded by white Thomas Jefferson, George Washington, those were all Christian white guys. So if y'all, Pan-Africanists or whatever, can rejoice in, say, a ethnic group kicking out non-ethnics from that ethnic group based on history. You could say race, but it's really like history. Y'all came here involuntarily. You could say that the El Salvadorian neighbor that came over here, and you could say that he came here involuntarily. You see the same logic. So it's very like to me. I was thinking like how do we kind of like wrestle with this because as Pan African nationalism, anti colonial sentiment rises, then you're gonna have pro colonial sentiment rise where it's like, hey, just because y'all disagree with the actions of our forefathers does not mean that I do. Like, I can still take pride in the fact that we had powerful military commanders that conquered. We can still take pride in that. And then at the same time, there's the other dichotomy where we're saying, no, you should not take pride in that. That's not cool. It's cool to be peaceful. It's cool to be one with the land. It's cool. It's cool to be where you belong. So I think like, especially me as like an interfaith, international kind of yogi, and I am that, I want to be that, like, I want to represent that side of the coin where it's like, yes, you can have your quote unquote native differences, but you can still be like, hey, let's let bygones be bygones to an extent and then do right by each other right now. And not say you have to erase your history or erase where you're from and say like, you can't identify with being black or being black and having your slave history. I think you can still have that. I think you can still have your Nigerian heritage, but still love like your white brothers and sisters and realize that like this is a whole new world that we live in.
Yeah, I think that sometimes the pendulum swings really far in
Mm,
order to right something that's been wrong for a long time. And so we're feeling a lot of those pendulum swings when we're trying to equalize um, people's rights. It's fascinating that you use the word native differences. Because, of course, as I'm listening to you, I'm like, the great irony of our entire nation story
mhm.
is that we did not belong here. We just came,
Exactly.
hey, we're going to take it. We want to, right? And it's fascinating how even in our language, right, that native word is like
Yeah.
associated with this concept, right, that we throw out there, not even thinking. So I thought that was kind of funny that you just happened to use that word. As I was sitting here thinking, like, yeah, I bet the Native Americans have a whole heck of a lot to say about,
Yeah.
these
Yep.
narratives of, the whites belonging here on this land and who it belongs to and who has the right
Yep.
to be.
Yep.
And that's a great irony. I mean, I think like that's also human nature is to have blind spots against the things that do not fit into the story we've woven or created about ourselves. And so I think that is also one of the practices of yoga is to have that discernment and to witness the thoughts and realize that just because you think it doesn't make it true. And having that discernment to be able to say, yes, this is a story that we've chosen, ritual, story, agreement, whatever words you want to say. Because going back to the rituals are agreements that we all made to do a thing a certain way. And so,
Yeah.
whatever story, agreement, ritual we have come up with, they were agreements that we made. They're not absolutes of right and wrong,
Yeah.
absolutes of the way it has to be. Dee showed me a great little clip from West Wing where this woman was quoting Leviticus, and Martin Sheen's character goes into this long tirade about, oh, so you're saying that because my wife wore two different um, textiles together at once, she should be stoned. And what about my,
Mm.
all the football players who are touching pigskin? Um, should we do this for them? And so he quotes all these other things from Leviticus. So just really remembering that um, it is all subjective, and that ultimately it's beliefs we've agreed to as part of just our agreement and our stories that we've created. It's not absolutes. And in yoga, um, the practice of yoga allows you to have discernment, to start to unwind what your beliefs are. One of the most powerful therapy techniques I think that's out there today is dialectical behavioral therapy, and it's used a lot for healing people from not only like personality disorders, but anxiety, depression, substance abuse. And so much of it is breaking down your thoughts and getting to the root cause of what's underneath whatever reaction you just had. And so you actually have to do work where you're like, I had this reaction. What was the thought I had just before that? What was the thought I had just before that? And what was the thought I had just before that? So that you're getting down to the root of what caused you to react a certain way, like what your trigger was. And so often we don't look at like the underlying sources of why we believe what we believe, why we've agreed to what we agree to. Um, there are things we just accept as money as currency. I think is such an interesting one, because that is one we've all like really were bought into.
Yeah.
And it's actually not that, if you look at like history, average people using money as currency is not actually been used that long. There was a lot of
Yeah.
trade. There was a lot of, I'll do this in exchange for goods. And so the fact that we all rely on money as currency is something we're all like, oh, but that's just the way it is. But really, there is no that's just the way it is. It's just the way that some people agreed to do it once upon a time, and then it got passed
Yeah.
down over and over again, just like my Christmas morning rituals that have been happening for 60 years. Because once when my little sister was little and we went to my grandparents' house,
Yeah.
there was a ritual that was created. And here I am 53 years later, having done the exact same ritual every single Christmas morning for 53 years. So I
Mm.
think that's just always we want to keep in mind. And that's where I think like particularly yana yoga practices in yoga can really help you with that discernment. And if you have beliefs or systems that you feel like are set, because the truth is there are many ways to do things, right? Burkina Faso has one way that they're doing it that is very legit. The US has one way of doing it that's very legit. They don't have to cancel each other out. We
Yeah.
can exist in the same space and do things differently. Not everybody has to be on the same, wavelength for everything, and we all have to be in 100% agreement and all little copy, cookie cutter copies of each other in order for us to succeed, survive, be a functioning society or earth. But I think the key is just allowing space for other viewpoints, other ways of being, other ways of thinking, and in that allowing space, also not turning towards violence, uh, and war and killing other people or suppressing other people just to make sure that we feel comfortable in whatever we have or what we think we should have. I think those
Yeah.
are real key factors.
You know, y- yes, absolutely. Like I I think it's like respect. It's sort of like it's just like again we get challenged with like respect and love, and like to me they're kind of to me I'm trying to morph them into the same thing, because like sometimes it's easier for me to be respectful than to be loving in certain situations, and vice versa, just depending on the context. Like at work, I can be respectful, like whatever, it's easy. But if you have the same tone with me on a different kind of setting, then maybe maybe I can't see it that way. And so I love Allison's advice. She goes, we inherently are going to miscommunicate. So just assume in the communication that they're coming from a good space.
Yeah.
That's it. Like, since you know that you're most likely gonna have an issue, because you know the people that you know you're the best you can barely speak to. These are people that have different languages when it comes to diplomacy. And what I love about one of the guys said in Burkina Faso, he said, "What I want for me, I want for you." Like, I want y'all to have American made things, and I want y'all to be prideful of your nation. I want y'all to love your brothers and sisters. I don't want the infighting that we see all day. All day, America's infighting over this and that and beefing with this and that. And you can't love, you can't find a leader to love. You can't find, even in your own community, like, you can't even love yourselves, right? And stuff like this. And so, anyways, I was thinking about what was my ritual, and my grandma used to say, my ritual is we keep Christmas about Jesus. Christmas is about Jesus, period. Like, so I one of the things that happened for my holiday, late December, like, mid December, I guess, I ran into a bookstore and I found a New Testament, like a pocket New Testament.
Aw.
And so because I've been watching these debates between um like Jews and Christians, and a lot of Jews essentially are saying that the Old Testament is mistranslated. It's not the same as the Jewish text. But since y'all think it is the same as the Jewish text, you're like, how can you not tell Jesus this is Jesus? But we're also like, hey, we have a different description of the Messiah based in Hebrew than it is when it's translated in English, yada yada. So I was like, let me just stick with the New Testament, and my like Nana said, and it's really dope. It starts off with the story of the Gospel of Saint Matthew, and those of you who aren't familiar, the beginning of this gospel is essentially the Sermon on the Mount. And the Sermon on the Mount is what like when you think about Jesus, just like blanket, like that's the Sermon on the Mount. That's where you've heard turn the other cheek. That's where you've heard the prayer, like thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Like that's all expressed explicitly. And
Yeah, I mean,
so,
want to like if you want to go read the Bible, even just reading that initial Sermon on the Mount by in Matthew is so powerful.
and I want to read a little bit of it today, because there's some stuff in there that I had read, and I was even telling my wife, and I was like, have you read any of Jesus's words before or seen them ever? And I don't. You don't have to believe he's the son of God, but just have you have you read anything from him? A lot of people haven't, or maybe they just heard it here and there. But I wanted to just kind of read a little section of it that I had read when I was like just at work, just only one in the office, just kind of like I think it was like Christmas Eve or something, like maybe the day before Christmas Eve, the 23rd, and I just like pulled it out and I just read it. And so and I remember this because my dad has a Bible and this section is underlined as well too. And Jesus says, I'm skipping along. This is chapter 5. I'm going to do verse of Matthew, and I'm going to do start with 7. And he goes, "Blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. Blessed are they which are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." And then there's another section in here. Um, he goes, "Ye are the light of the world. A city that is set on a hill cannot be hid. Neither do men light a candle and put it under a bushel, but on a candlestick, and it giveth light unto all that are in the house. Let your let your light so shine before men, that they may see your good works and glorify your Father which is in heaven." I love reading that because it's like that alone addresses a lot of things. Like Jesus is saying, obviously, that peacemakers are the sons of God. Then he's also saying explicitly, like, the reason to be merciful is that you'll have mercy placed upon you. And as I was reading this and as I was exposed to when I was younger, I was like, all of this sounds like really nice and cool, but like, how can I do this actually? Like, like I understand the idea, like be peaceful, but how? And and that's why like where I think like a lot of these yogic tools came in, even when you read a lot of that, like I guess the main principle for me is like this idea of karma, where it's like nothing you do, nothing, every little thing that you do has a response. And sometimes like it can seem like our events happen randomly, or like consciousness is this super like out of touch thing, and like which it kind of is in a way. But also I feel like the yogic sciences and the yogic tools, they sort of like, if you were to focus all of your attention on consciousness, like pay attention to like, okay, what are the different modes that you get in? What are the different like what are the different feelings that you might feel? What are the different types of thought patterns that you might have? Like, to me, yoga is the science that is almost like it's what you can read or learn or practice that'll help you become more pure of heart. It'll help you be make more peace in more situations, because like I would even like reading the Bible, reading different scriptures. I think that's highly advised. But like when you're sort of observing the world and you're thinking to yourself, okay, if I do something in any way, shape, or form, it will have an impact on the world around me. And so like the reason why this really hit me and really resonated with me is like, even in our narratives of slaves, it's like they called us slaves. Like that is not who we ever were.
Right.
So
Yeah.
when I'm like, okay, we talk about Thomas Jefferson owning slaves, I'm like, the fact that he had so many powerful black men around him, like that actually kind of proves my point a little bit, where it's like this country is great. It has a lot of pros and it has cons that are, it has cons too, but like to say that like, oh, these enslaved people, like they were just being told what to do and they had no role in anything that ever happened, and like they were just beat down the whole time. Like, are you sure that that's true? Right. And like and so I just feel like, my grandma and Nana's ritual was, keep it on Jesus. And then the next thing would always be like we would always sing like, this little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. And it's like I could just see them now on the plantation.
Yeah.
So, so it's like, okay, so then you go to Santa Claus is my last little bit. It's like that's some of the lessons I've learned from Jesus. And then it's like, what are lessons from Santa Claus? It's almost like, Santa says, if you do good, you'll get rewarded. And if you do bad, you won't get rewarded. And to an extent, like you could say that's kind of true, sort of. But like with the yogic like layering on there, it's like, well, if you've lived several lifetimes, like which we all have, like something might come up in your life that's related to like 6 lives ago. You might have been an aardvark and did your partner dirty, and now you got to like deal with that today, and like and that it's so dope. Like the Ramayana is like that. Like the Ramayana is like even Jesus Christ is a similar story. It's like, or Muhammad Ali, or anybody that you want to think of that was upright, but they have these tragic like things that happen to them throughout their life, and it's sort of like, oh, that's just like all also part of the plan, you know. So I think like this, what Santa Claus is like, yes, sometimes when you do well, like you'll get like, you'll get rewarded. But at the same time, like just because things around you don't seem like they're going that well does not mean that you're bad. Does not mean that you're doing something wrong. Like if anything, it's a sign that even greater rewards are coming. It's almost like, you know, yeah, sometimes you're not nice,
Which
you
kind
know.
of circles us
Yeah,
back up to the very beginning of the shedding of the snakeskin.
there you go.
Well, sometimes you can't see it in the moment.
Mm,
Sometimes you're not feeling it. Sometimes you don't
hmm
know what that transformation is happening. But just having that faith that the shedding of the snakeskin is coming and that renewal is coming, whether you
can see it or
Yeah.
not. And again, sometimes you have to rub up against some uncomfortable stuff to get the shedding to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bob Marley has this great quote where he goes like, in this regard too, about just like anybody who has national angst. Like I've got friends that are just like they're just tense all the time, and Bob Marley has this thing where he goes, he has it's kind of good and bad. On one side, he goes, "There's no use, like no one can stop them now." There's this
Okay.
thing where it's like I can't save you from yourself. I can be there for you, but like what's coming for you comes for you. It has to. There's no other choice. And at the same time, like we have no choice but to continue walking each other home. Like we have no choice but to love each other. Like, yeah, like look, maybe the son does have to pay for the sins of their father in some way, shape, or form. But it's like, bro, like we all do. Like, like it is what it is. Like, and I think like uh once you kind of realize that like, hey, this is all just a part of the process, like part of being a being now is that some things might come and nip you in the butt from the past, but but at the same time, like you can always meet that controversy with grace and with the point of view that like rather than trying to push against life, I can just, like you said, roll with the punches and let like this stuff get off of me so that my grandchildren will have, maybe they'll have a couple things for me, but they'll have one less thing, they'll have one less they'll have one less baggage than we did. So I don't know. That's just something that's been on my mind.
I think that's a beautiful way to sort of wrap up with like this promise of the new year, promise of these new young leaders who have very different messages, but perhaps threads, and there's a change in the narrative as we're getting younger leaders coming into power. And the fact that, yeah, things, I mean, like you said, Bob Marley says, nothing can stop time.
Yeah. Nothing can stop time.
Nothing
They
can
got
stop.
bombs, they got a time, they got all this, but
Don't worry about it. Nothing can stop time. It's all gonna play out like it's gonna play out.
yeah.
Well, thank you for another exciting and passionate and wonderful and interesting conversation. It's always so fun
My
to
goodness.
have our time
Thank
together.
Yes, thank you. Also, shout out to your hoodie, Alice Coltrane in the Heart of
Alice Coltrane
Krishna.
on my hoodie today. Yep. I know.
Yeah, that's hard.
We-
That's John
I got
Coltrane's.
my Alice
Yeah,
Coltrane hoodie. Most days you see my Alice Coltrane hoodie. With it's
yeah.
also got Swami Satchidananda and Alice Coltrane on the back with Hare Krishna Hare Ram on the sleeves. So one of my favorites. Yeah. Well, thank you all, and until next time.
Till next time, Heart of Krishna, Om Om. Amen.
Om.
Peace.